Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Cam Jennings coming at you on behalf of EpicConversions.com. Today, I want to talk to you about limits. Now, weather report for you. As I record this, it is 4 degrees outside with wind chill, which I'm walking backwards right now because I'm walking into the wind. It's actually negative 15 degrees out here with the wind chill. And I'm feeling every bit of that negative 15 degrees right now. But when it comes to limits, here's what I figured out, all right? And this is the good news. There's always going to be somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody a little better than you. And it's a good thing. Because you don't compare yourself to those people, but you do try to take lessons away from them. And comparing yourself to people, not good. But try to take lessons away from the people who are doing it at a higher level than you, right? Now that being said, some of those people doing it at a higher level than you, they're willing to go further than you. You know, their limits are different than yours. So what I'm saying is, understand your limits. What are you willing to do? What are you willing not to do? I'm not just talking about ethical stuff and unethical stuff. Now look at what I'm doing today. I'm out here in this 4-degree weather, getting it in. Why? Because I have a streak going, and the streak gives me momentum. The momentum is transferable to other aspects of my life. I talked to you guys about that yesterday. But everybody's got a limit, man. Now with me, I don't think I can get a whole mile in here without stopping in, warming up, and then getting the second half in. You know? Talking about Fahrenheit temperatures. But in this weather that we're in right now, you get about a half hour before you start getting frostbite on your exposed skin. So, my face is exposed. So if I'm out here longer than a half hour, I will be getting frostbite right there in my face. Probably starts on my nose. That's a limit, man. That's a physical limit. I don't really want frostbite. I just want to keep my streak going, that's it. So, everybody's got limits, man. So I think it's important to kind of define what your limits are. You know, how much you're willing to spend on education, how much productivity you're willing to put in a day. What are you willing to do for the goals you're trying to attain? You know? And yeah, the thing is, you know, whether you actually take the time to think about this and decide or not, like, your limits will come out. Those limits will be exposed eventually. Pretty quickly, honestly. But, you know. But I think limits matter. And if you know the limits are going to be exposed eventually anyway, probably sooner rather than later, and I think it's a really good idea just to try to set a standard for yourself. Just to try to set some limits for yourself so that you can have some modicum of control over those limits, you know? Because the truth is, to accomplish what you want to accomplish, if you're not already accomplishing it right now, but it's something you want to accomplish, the truth is, you're probably going to have to get uncomfortable. You're probably going to have to do things that you're not used to doing. You know? You're going to be outside of your comfort zone. And it's probably going to be, you know, something you perceive to be a little beyond your limits. You know, I can tell you, when I first started walking, I would not have walked in that. Like, that's too cold up there. I would have been like, nah, today's a bike day. That's what I would have done. But I'm not that guy anymore. I pushed myself beyond those mental limits that I had in the beginning, and now I'm at a different place. So, yeah, I think that getting anywhere new is going to require you to push beyond what you perceive to be your current limits, because your true limits are probably beyond what you perceive them to be. But at the same time, I do think it's good when you start things to have some ideas in your mind about what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Another limit that I had before was, I remember a while back, someone had told me, like, hey man, if you want to grow a podcast, do it every day. That's the way you grow a podcast. And I said, okay, well, this is a few years ago. I said, okay, well, I'm not willing to do a podcast every day, but I am willing to do it 5 days a week, So I actually resolved to doing like this podcast called One Step Away, 5 days a week, and taking the weekends off. And I did that for a year, and I saw a little bit of growth, but not what I was looking for. However, I know what it takes to grow a podcast, and if you're doing a solo cast like what I was doing, there's still some things you got to do to grow it. Even if you don't feel like doing interviews because you think they're a pain in the butt, which was kind of me, there's still some other things that are required to grow. And it doesn't involve just, pulling out your microphone and just talking every day. That's not it. That's not the only key to growth. Not in 2020. It wasn't in 2020. It's not in 2023. Not in 2024 here. So it's more than that when it comes to podcasts. But that's stuff we talk about in the Epic Conversions Weekly Mentorship Club. So you can get over to epicconversions.com if you want to find that. But the point is, I thought I could do 5 days a week, but now here I am doing these Thoughts on a Walk episodes, and I'm doing them every day. And I've been doing them every day for a while now. So I think it's been like almost 3 weeks I've been doing them every day, which isn't like a long time, but still, I'm doing them every day. So that idea that I had before about like, I can't do, 7 days a week. I can only do 5 days a week, right? That was like this mental limit that I had put on myself, which is fine. I think it's good to have your limits and know what you're willing to do and not to do. But a lot of times to get to the places you want to get to, you have to break those limits. You have to, throw them in the garbage and find new limits for yourself. And a lot of people call that growth. But I tell you what, growth is painful. It's not comfortable. It's painful. But a lot of times, you might not even see your growth if you're not like defining those limits ahead of time. The only reason I see my growth in this podcast example that I was telling you about, the only reason I see my growth is because I did define those limits of 5 days a week with that other podcast. Now I see I've grown beyond that. Like, I know I can do more, so I do more. And I'll tell you what, there's one motto that has always held true ever since I've been here. It's do more to get more. I think the other part of setting limits for yourself, and not really you set them, with the understanding that, maybe one day you can break them, I think the other thing to understand about limits is that, like, understand that your limits aren't everybody else's limits, For the guy who says, well, I'm going to do it 7 days a week, there's someone's going to come along who's more competitive, more ambitious. They're going to say, well, I'm going to do it 14 times a week, twice a day, So there again, that's where it comes back to not trying to compare yourself to everybody, but understanding what your particular limits are, what you're willing to do, and trying to compete the best you can. With the understanding that, there's always going to be someone more ambitious. There's always going to be someone more willing to put more work in. That doesn't take away from what you can do. So again, you have to define your limits, decide what you're gonna do, with the understanding that moving to another level, you're probably gonna have to break some of those limits. And then you also, on the other side of that, have the understanding there's always gonna be somebody willing to do a little more. And that's always been the way it is, man. You got hungry, ambitious people out here. So someone's always going to be willing to do a little more. Again, that's where I come back to, don't compare yourself to others. Try to take lessons away from them. Try to model some things that they might be doing that you could possibly use in your business. Not everything though. Like I was watching these interviews from this girl last night, and like her interview style was just really deadpan, like this deadpan interview style where like she's almost like offensive to her guests, the people she's interviewing. She's almost like offensive. It's like a completely different interview style. I found it really, really irritating, really annoying, but I also found it fascinating. And while I would never interview somebody like that, I watched several of her interviews. Just kind of like, I don't know, kind of captivated by the style. Not captivated. I don't think captivated is the right word, because it was almost like looking at a car wreck to me. I mean, she was insulting to her guests in a lot of ways. But that was this different kind of interview style, and it was very interesting. So I definitely watched. I must have watched last night. I probably watched 6 or 7 interviews from her, just trying to understand why this was so popular, why she was blowing up so much. And a lot of it you could say, well, it's probably her guests, but I don't think it was just her guests, because it's not just your guests. It's the way you're talking to your guests. It's a different kind of way to talk to them, and it pulls something different out of them because you're talking to them that way. And I do think there's some takeaways there. I absolutely hate that girl's interview style, but I can take something away from what she's doing. And that's what I mean. I don't think that you should compare yourself to other people. But when you find people doing something at a higher level than what you're doing it at, there's definitely takeaways and things you can think about that might apply to your business. Now, I don't think you should be afraid to say, hey, this doesn't apply to my business. I don't think you should be afraid to do that. Businesses need to have identities, and sometimes when you start taking in too many new things, too many new ideas, too many new thises and too many new that's, like, you change the identity of what your business is. And I don't think that's a good thing. So I definitely think that these are things to kind of really consider. But I do think at the heart of it, and at the core, there's a recipe there for success when it comes to online business. And I think in that recipe for success is kind of understanding your limits, kind of setting what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. With that understanding that, hey, I will probably grow into breaking these limits. I will probably outgrow these limits at some point. But right now, this is what I'm willing to do. I remember a time when I first got started where I wasn't willing to do a video more than once a week. That was all I was willing to do. Once a week video. I remember when I first started launching products on the internet, like I'd launch one every like 3 months or something. Like the idea of launching every month was like ridiculous to me. It was like impossible. I just hadn't grown into it yet, hadn't grown into it. So I think it's good to set your limits, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, with the understanding you are going to outgrow them. So anyways, I don't know. That's kind of the stuff I'm thinking about this morning. Hope you're doing awesome out there. Hope you're doing amazing. I'm going to go inside and get warm. It's really cold out here. So hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you.